Could you imagine going from a trained economist and former college professor to dividing your days into 3 blocks of 4 hours aimed at improving your lifestyle of living off the land? Well, that's exactly what Helen and Scott Nearing did, starting out in Vermont in 1932. Together they wrote many books and lived each day to improve their quote-unquote good life one day at a time. As Americans living in the 20th century, we are so spoiled to having the means provided for us by a simple trip to the store, a drive through to local fast food, anything of that example. But when the Nearings were alive, they had learned to provide for themselves by means of living off the land. Scott and Helen adapted to a lifestyle that we could not imagine today. Hard labor followed by more hard labor just to live their daily lives at a normal standard. Helen and Scott were very successful, even during the Great Depression, because of their intelligence, their enjoyment, their commitment, and especially their self-discipline. The Nearings were self-sufficient, simple land livers. They enjoyed traveling and also wrote many books together. Helen and Scott divided their days into 3 blocks of 4 hours. Their work was devoted to work and play in both aspects. Being self-sufficient required careful time management. One 4-hour block was considered bread labor, meaning that they met food requirements, built shelter, or even made their clothing. Or they even created tools that they might need for the work for the next day or week. The second 4-hour block was civic work, meaning they did something of value to help their community. The third 4-hour block was professional pursuits. Helen liked music, and Scott liked to do economic research. The fourth and final 4-hour block was for recreation, such as reading, skiing, which they both enjoyed, and writing, which they also both enjoyed. Helen and Scott were able to bring in a cash income via maple trees that they tapped, and they used only organic means for growing their home gardens. They designed a tree tapping structure to prepare maple sugar and maple syrup from their maple trees. The Nearings lived in a couple of locations together, so when they moved to an area with no maple trees, they cultured blueberries as a source of income. Food gardening was very important to Helen and Scott, so growing a garden full of pesticides and fertilizer did not sound like a healthy choice to them, so they opted out and thought organic growth was the best choice for them. The Nearings enjoyed traveling together to several countries and wrote about it in multiple books. Together they visited Irkutsk, Leningrad, Moscow, Leningrad, Baku, and Tashkent, touring many different sites at these locations. They did schools, farms, construction sites. Helen and Scott also traveled to the Middle East, Canada, and Southeast Asia, and they wrote about that in a book titled Socialist Around the World. A winter after that book was written, they traveled to the People's Republic of China, calling China the People's Socialist Giant, and they traveled to the Soviet Union, and they wrote about that experience in a book titled The Brave New World. Scott and Helen were very smart people. They went on to write many books together. Scott was part of writing at least 104 books or pamphlets about his thoughts, actions, or beliefs. And Helen co-wrote at least 5 major books with Scott as well, about their travels and their good life on the farm. They began their life together in 1932 in Vermont during the Great Depression, at the foot of a mountain. The Nearings moved from Vermont to Maine in 1952 due to ski resort construction being done up and around their farm, where they finally settled their roots in Maine, and they settled there until their deaths. Scott passed away due to old age in 1983 at 100 years old. Helen passed away in 1995 due to an automobile accident. The Nearings' approach to living was intriguing to many people in that they were not looking for money or wants, just a simple way of life. Helen and Scott were simple, live off the land, work off the land, make money off the land type of people. They were just trying to show the world that you don't need a lot of money to make it by every single day. Just some hard work and dedication, and together you can accomplish so much. In Cape Rocher, Maine, next to their original home, the Nearings built a new home with all the modern commodities. And today, that home is a tourist attraction that actually carries on the Nearings work, and people call it the Good Life Center. So you can go there, visit anytime, and see what Helen and Scott Nearing were all about. Thank you.